The NBA draft is right around the corner, and the trade rumors are already starting up with the Detroit Pistons involving Bojan Bogdanovic. Would you guys trade Bojan for a lottery pick? We'll tell you what team is being rumored to be interested in Bojan in today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I'm your host, Kuka Hill. You can find me over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. And if you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. Later on in the podcast, we'll talk about the new coaching staff surrounding Monty Williams, which I feel pretty confident about. We'll talk about it a little bit later. And then even further into the podcast, I want to talk about the future of the NBA and how it pertains to the Detroit Pistons. An interesting talk there. I'm interested to see how you guys feel about what we're going to talk about later. So stay tuned for that for sure. But the first thing we got to talk about is the NBA draft is right around the corner. Right around the corner. And rumors are already starting up with teams that are in the top 10 that want to move out. You're going to hear a lot of rumors, and we're going to see a lot of movement, it sounds like, in the top 10 amongst these teams. And the Pistons are a team that has been mentioned by Brian Windhorst of ESPN, a team that could be willing to move out of number 5, maybe trade back, or maybe trade for a player. But that's not what we're going to talk about today. What we're going to talk about today is what was talked about in the ESPN article by Jonathon Givony and let me make sure I get this name. Yeah, Jeremy Woo on ESPN, their 2023 NBA mock draft. And within this article, they talk about the Detroit Pistons. It's in a blurb talking about Cam Whitmore potentially falling to Detroit. But later on in that blurb, they say, quote, some trade scenarios could be in play for the Pistons with the with the 31st overall pick as well. For example, packaging Bojan Bogdanovic for Tim Hardaway Jr. in the number 10 overall pick, as sources tell ESPN. So, the trade that they're saying that has been talked about, that's possible to happen, that they've heard through sources telling ESPN, is a package involving Bojan Bogdanovic, number 31 overall pick, for Tim Hardaway Jr. and the 10th overall pick. Before we keep going, I want to know from you guys, would you guys do a trade centered around that? That might have to be a little bit more added in on both sides, maybe like a second round pick or like some salary, whatever. That may not be the exact trade package, but that would be the centerpiece. Would you guys do that trade? I want to hear from you guys in the comment section down below or over on Twitter. This is what I want to tell you guys before I even say whether I would do it. I'm not shocked at all to see this. Not shocked at all to see that this is possibly something that will happen. Because, one, I was told, and I think I said it on the podcast a few months ago, but I was told a few months ago that Tim Hardaway Jr. was a guy to watch for the Pistons acquiring at the deadline, and he's also a guy for the Pistons to watch for the Pistons possibly acquiring in the offseason because Cade Cunningham is a really big fan of his. Cade would like to play with him, and him and Cade got close apparently over when Cade was, you guys remember that James Edwards III article when Cade decided to have surgery. He talked about how one of the guys that he really spent a lot of time talking to about it was Tim Hardaway Jr. Apparently, I heard that they got really close over this, and Cade would really like to play with THJ. So this isn't shocking to me at all because I was told this months ago. So hearing that the Pistons are potentially interested in going after Tim Hardaway Jr., not shocking to me at all. It makes sense to package Tim Hardaway Jr. in his contract with the 10th overall pick to help the Pistons or help the Mavs get Bojan Bogdanovic, who is one of the best shooters in the NBA, a really great offensive player, help space the floor for the Mavericks around Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, while also getting basically a first overall pick in this draft with the number 31 overall pick. So I think the trade makes sense. Again, I think that maybe Detroit has to throw in a second round pick or something, but that framework, I could see it happening. And again, it's something that I've heard that the Pistons could be interested in for a while. Would I do it? I would do that deal. I think that is good value. If you can get Bojan in that 31st overall pick to get you a lottery pick, it's something that I definitely would like to do. It's something we've talked about on the podcast a lot, using Bojan to get another lottery pick in this deep draft class, especially this deep draft class with wings. And according to, if we're going to go off of Tankathon's mock draft, now obviously this draft, I can't wait for this draft and everything that's leading up to the draft. We're hearing a lot of rumors. There's going to be a lot of shakeups. I don't think we know how this draft is going to go at all. Who's going to go where? Who's going to be picking where? Who's going to be traded? Like, it's going to be a really fun draft, a really fun offseason, it sounds like. But if we're going according to Tankathon, around the 10th overall pick, these guys would be available. Grady Dick, Jordan Hawkins, Keontae George, Cason Wallace, Nick Smith Jr., potentially Anthony Black, Taylor Hendricks. They have him going 8 here. But if you go a little bit farther down, and some of these guys at Tankathon, I'm a little bit higher on, but if you want to go down on Tankathon's mock draft more to wings, you got Bryce Sensabaugh, you got Leonard Williams, you got G.G. Jackson, you got Jet Howard, you got Dariq Whitehead, a guy that I think the Pistons and Troy Weaver would very much like, is Bilal Coulibaly, I believe is how you say his name. He was the teammate of Victor Wembanyama. I think he's a guy that the Pistons would probably really take a chance on. All those guys are wings. If the Pistons can get another first-round pick in this draft to get one of those guys, I can definitely see them doing it. And again, we talked about this, I believe, last week or 2 weeks ago. James Edwards III of The Athletic included at the end of his article last week talking about the Pistons draft. Yeah, he thinks it's more likely that the Pistons are trying to trade for multiple first-round picks than it is that the Pistons trade their 5th overall pick for a player. And I've heard that they're interested in adding another first-round pick as well throughout this offseason. So does it mean that they're definitely going to? No. But I think I would bet my money that the Pistons try to get another first-round pick, and it's to get another wing. I think they walk away from this draft with 2 wings on their team out this draft. I think they trade Bojan on draft night. Again, it's not for sure. It's not 100%, but that's what I'm willing to bet my money on. And Bojan and 31 for Tim Hardaway Jr. and 10, I could see it happening. Again, the relationship with THJ and Kate Cunningham works. THJ is a outside shooter. He'll space the floor. He's from he went to Michigan. Obviously, has some connections there. So I think he would fit pretty well with the team. Not a great defender, but I think he would fit pretty well with the team. And again, adding another first-round pick would be really good. Or another thing that people have talked about, and I definitely won't rule this out at all either. Rod Beard, formerly a Detroit Pistons beat writer, he came out and tweeted at me and said, what if the Pistons are trying to take multiple first-round picks, trade Bojan for like 26 and 29 from Indiana to then package 26, 29, 31 to move back up into the first round, get like 7. Or maybe they use 5, 26, 29 to try and move up to like 4 or 3. Maybe they try to do something like that. I could see that happening for sure. If there's one thing that Troy Weaver has proven that he's really good with, is understanding the value of picks in the draft on draft day, understanding and having a good grasp of how the draft's going to play out, having a good grasp of what teams are trying to do on draft day, what their weaknesses are, what they're struggling to do, what their future plans are, how you can take advantage of it. He's shown that for 3 years. He has a pretty good grasp on that, and he knows how to take advantage. So it would not shock me at all if he tried to do, if we saw like 2 different trades happen on draft day. We saw Bojan get traded for multiple first-round picks to Indiana potentially, and then he uses those draft picks plus 5 to move up to 4 or something. All of that is on the board with Troy Weaver, and I'm completely, I wouldn't be shocked about any of that happening. So I think it's going to be an action-packed draft night for the Detroit Pistons, but we'll see what happens. We'll see. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below or over on Twitter. What do you guys think is going to happen on draft night? Do you think the Pistons will trade Bojan Bogdanovic? Would you guys trade him for Bojan and 31 for 10 and Tim Hardaway Jr.? Let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. When we come back, I want to talk about Monty Williams' coaching staff that has been leaked to us, the full staff it appears. We'll talk about that when we come back. But first, I've got to tell you guys about one of our sponsors, PrizePicks. So, how does PrizePicks work? Well, you pick 2 to 6 players to see if they score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, and you bring up 25 times your money on any entry. Let's say the NBA Finals were still going on, or let's say you had the NBA was going on and the NFL was going on at the same time. And you want to take the over in Jared Goff's passing yards. You want to take the over in, let's say, DeAndre Swift's rushing yards. And you want to take the over in Kate Cunningham's points. You want to take the over in Jaden Ivey's assists. And you want to put them in the exact same parlay where you can do that with PrizePicks. No competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch. This includes NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, disc golf, Euro basketball, cricket, and more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's just that easy. Safe and fast withdrawals currently operational over 30 states and Canada. Download the PrizePicks app or go to PrizePicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports today. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON and sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100 with PrizePicks. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons, hit that subscribe button, or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. I'm going to tell you guys again, stay tuned for the last segment. I think it's an interesting conversation to have and an interesting way to look at the NBA and the future and how it pertains for the Pistons and their building. I think it's going to be a really fun conversation, just something I want to throw out there. So stay tuned for that. But Pistons obviously hired Monty Williams. We had the introductory press conference yesterday or on Tuesday. Whenever you guys listen to this, it was on Tuesday the 13th of June. And we hadn't known for sure what Monty Williams' full staff would look like. And we did know, though, that Stephen Silas was going to be his lead assistant. He was asked about Stephen Silas. And then during his press conference, during his introductory press conference, we did see Jarrett Jack in the crowd wearing a Restore hoodie. I think it was. It was either a hoodie or a T-shirt. We came on the podcast. We talked about it yesterday. And I said, obviously, that would seem to me that Jarrett Jack is on the staff. And Omari Sankofa, beat writer for the Detroit Free Press, he tweeted out that apparently we know Monty Williams' full staff as of right now. So let's go ahead and go through the names. And actually, let me save that for after we say the names. Let's go ahead and just get through the names. So we got Stephen Silas, lead assistant. Dan Burke, who is one of the greatest defensive minds the game has seen, former Sixers assistant. Some Phoenix holdovers, some guys that were in Phoenix with Monty. Mark Bryant, works with Biggs. Brian Randall, Jarrett Jack, former NBA player, and Steve Scalzi. Then you got Jamel McMillan, which is Nate McMillan's son. Nate McMillan was formerly the head coach, obviously, of the Atlanta Hawks, I believe, just last year, a year or 2 years ago. That's his son. And then they got Spencer Rivers, who is Doc Rivers' son. So, before we even talk about the individuals on the staff, let me just say this. The Pistons went. We were coming on this podcast, and the Pistons community was worried. I was worried about the coaching search and how it was going. We were talking about Kevin Ollie being the head coach. We were talking about Charles Lee being the head coach. We were talking about Jaron Collins being the head coach. By the way, none of those guys got head coaching jobs. Kevin Ollie got an assistant coaching job at Brooklyn Nets. Charles Lee, I believe he is now the lead assistant, I think, in Milwaukee now. I believe he got the job, lead assistant in Milwaukee, but he didn't get the head coaching job. So all the guys that we thought the Pistons were going to be hiring as first-time head coaches with new staffs, none of them got head coaching jobs outside of Detroit. One of them didn't get an interview for a head coaching job outside of Detroit. We thought those guys were going to be our head coach, the Pistons head coach. Everyone was worried. But if you guys remember, before the Monty Williams news officially broke, I came on here and said, well, they're interested in Monty. If they went through this whole crazy coaching search, if they took us all the way around the corner, went around the block, came back, did 360, all this stuff, and they ended up with the right coach and right coaching staff still, it's fine. Like that, how the coaching search was going, I don't care how it was going. I don't care how confusing it was. I don't care how suspect it looked at times. If they arrived at the right checkpoint, all would be forgiven. And damn it, they 100% have arrived at the right checkpoint here. Monty Williams was a hell of a hire. Absolutely a hell of a hire. Stephen Silas, we talked about him last week on an episode. Long-term assistant, got the job in Houston because of how well he was respected across the league as an assistant coach. And they talked about during his press conference, he was supposed to be going to Boston, basically. They didn't say Boston, but they were hinting towards it. I'll just say it. He was supposed to be going to Boston. Boston was going to be hiring him as their lead assistant. But Monty Williams reached out, his agent reached out, and they provided him with some, gave him a pitch to join the Pistons. And Monty Williams said the pitch that they gave him caused Stephen Silas to rethink his plans. He had decided that he was going to go to Boston, but after hearing the pitch from Monty, he had to rethink his plans and think about what was better and decided to choose Detroit over Boston. That's pretty cool. That's pretty dope. And Stephen Silas is a really damn good assistant. So that already, really good hiring. I know it didn't go well in Houston, but he got that job because of how well he was respected as assistant coach. And we don't need to get into him and the assistant coach because we spent an entire episode in the last podcast talking about it. But either way, the point is, really good hire, Stephen Silas. Then you got Dan Burke, who has been an assistant coach in the NBA since 1989. 1989. And he's worked with Larry Bird, under Isaiah Thomas, Rick Carlisle, Jim O'Brien, Frank Vogel, Nate McMillan. He was on the Philadelphia 76ers staff under Doc Rivers. He's regarded as one of the best defensive minds out there. He's great. Absolutely great. Great assistant to have. So that's another great hire. Then Mark Bryant, Brian Randall, Jarrett Jack, and Steve Scalzi. I really like getting Jarrett Jack. I've been a fan of his. But outside of just getting Jarrett Jack, bringing over some of those Phoenix holdovers, bringing over some of those Phoenix guys who are familiar with Monty Williams and what he wants to do and can preach his message, can preach his system, what he wants to do, his ideology. Having that comfortability and familiarity, my goodness, on the staff with Monty is big time. And Mark Bryant has been well known of working with bigs. Jarrett Jack is a very well-respected assistant coach across the league. And then Nate McMillan was a good head coach in the NBA for quite a time. Got his son, who has experience in the NBA, in Jamel McMillan. And then you got Spencer Rivers, obviously son of Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers has been a coach in the NBA for a very long time. He obviously has an NBA son as well. They've been around the NBA for a while. You're getting some really well-experienced guys. And what was once a concern in the Pistons community, what was once a concern early in the coaching search, early in this coaching process, the Pistons coaching staff, dare I say, is pretty damn strong right now. Like, I don't know if I've seen the Pistons have such a strong coaching staff since I've been, like, for real watching the Pistons when I could really understand everything. So probably since, like, I don't know, I'd probably say like 2010, probably like 2010, 2009. Since then, this is a pretty damn good coaching staff. So, hey, like I said, it was weird at first. It was confusing at first. But the Pistons ended up getting their head coach, a really damn good head coach. And now they have a really damn good coaching staff to support him as well. So, I'm really confident about what they can do moving forward. I'm interested to see what, I wish they asked these questions at the introductory press conference, but maybe we'll get questions about it in the future. I really am interested to see what they're going to be trying to run scheme-wise, offensively and defensively, what they like to do, what are they seeing for this team moving forward when it comes to X's and O's on the court. I'm interested to see that, but when you're looking at just on paper, the coaching staff with Monty Williams looks pretty damn strong to me. I really like it. You got former NBA players. You got guys who have been around the NBA and the NBA circles for their whole entire lives. You got experience, 20-plus year experience with Dan Burke and Stephen Silas. You got a nice balance of everything. I love this Pistons coaching staff. I think it's going to be great. So I'm really happy about it. But let me know what you guys think about this coaching staff in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka. I really like it. I'd like to hear if you guys like it, though. Again, let me know. Coming up, I want to talk about a topic that I've been seeing JJ Redick talk about a lot in his podcast, and you guys know I often talk about JJ Redick's podcast and what he talks about. I really respect JJ, so anytime he said something, I really, I listen to it. I've seen him talk about it a lot lately. I also saw some other talking heads talk about it, and I think it's a good conversation to have, and we can make it a Pistons topic somewhat. So stay tuned for what I'm talking about when we come back. But first, you guys got to hear from some of our lovely sponsors. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. All right, so this conversation right here, again, I've been saying the whole episode, very interesting topic. And before we even get into it, I want to hear from you guys immediately following this topic, what you guys think about this. But the topic is surrounding championships and what it takes to win championships in the future of the NBA based off what we've seen from the NBA over the past 20 years or so. So follow me a little bit here. JJ Redick was talking about on his podcast or on First Take, one of the two. I watched First Take when JJ's on there. JJ was talking about what it takes to win a championship. And a point he made is, you can have these really good teams, and he always uses the term Alfreds, basically role players. You have a Batman, you have a Robin, but you need Alfreds. You need these role players, okay? He talks about that a lot. But you can have as many great role players. You can have as many great Alfreds. You can have a great Robin. And while those guys are incredibly important, at the end of the day, you need that Batman. And not just any ordinary Batman. You need a top 2-3 best player in the NBA. You need a top 20 player of all time to win a championship, is what history has told us over the last 22 so years. So, I just want to run through some of the names that have won championships since 2000, okay? We can go back to, really, you could go back to 1991. We could go even farther back. But actually, let's just start at 91. 91, we're going to go in order from 91 up to now. Jordan, Olajuwon, Jordan, Tim Duncan, O'Neal, Tim Duncan again. The one exception was the Pistons in 04, but we'll get to that a little bit. 04. Then right back, Tim Duncan, Dwayne Wade, Tim Duncan, Paul Pierce, KG, Ray Allen. That was a super team. And KG, a lot of people have KG top 20. I'd have KG top 20. So still goes on. Kobe, Dirk, LeBron. Kawhi is if he was able to play throughout his whole career, would be a top 20 player. At his peak, he was probably a top 20 player. He won't get ranked that high because injuries, but at the time, he still was probably like top 2 best player in the league in that run. And 2014 wasn't even just Kawhi. It was Kawhi, obviously that was Tim Duncan still, Tony Parker, Manu, like that was a great team with multiple Hall of Famers. With Tim Duncan obviously top 20. So keep going. Steph, LeBron, Steph and KD again, Kawhi again, LeBron, Giannis, Steph again, and Nikola Jokic. What's in common with all of those guys going all the way back to 1991, besides 04, they're all top 20 players. And if they're not top 20 players, they're somewhere in 20 to 25. So basically, you need an all-time great to win the NBA Finals. Why do I bring that up? Because it's got me thinking, man. How can the Pistons win a championship? The Pistons are going to need an all-time player to win a championship. Now, can you make the Eastern Conference Finals without having one of those? Yeah, you can. Jimmy Butler is not a top 20, top 40, top 50 player of all time. Maybe top 100. I know there was talk that he was maybe a top 100 player of all time, but whatever. He's not an all-time great. He's gotten the team to the finals, but he's lost. So, you can get to the finals with a good team. But history has shown for 32 years that you need an all-time great, one of the top 3 players in the entire NBA to win a championship. And do we think the Pistons potentially have one of those? I don't know. Cade, I've said for the last 2 years, I think Cade has future MVP written on him if he can reach his ceiling. I think Cade has that type of ceiling on him. But that would require him, obviously getting healthy, having that outside shot, that pull-up jump shooting that he showed in college. If he's able to get to that, the Pistons might have it. The Pistons might have it with Cade because Cade is that type of dude. So that's what makes me feel a little better. Because I truly believe if Cade, the thing that unlocks Cade, if Cade can get that three-point shooting and he can get that pull-up three-point shooting to come around how it was in college, what people were projecting it to be, he has that kind of potential to be an MVP-type player in the league. And that would be enough. That would be enough, I think, to get the Pistons to the finals. It was a good team around him, obviously. But with him leading the charge, I think he would be a bona fide number 1. So I think they potentially have it with Cade. But as of right now, he's missed the whole season. And as much as we love Cade, and Ashton, if you're watching, look, we love Cade. You know I love Cade. But to keep it a stack and keep it honest, he's been hurt. He hasn't shot the ball from deep well yet. I believe he'll get there, but right now there's questions about it, so we don't know yet. We don't know if their Pistons are going to have actually that kind of player, so we don't know. So it's just really, basically what it's like spawned in my head. What I've been thinking about is, man, 32 years of history. Really, you could go even farther. Before the time I mentioned, you got Magic, Larry Bird, and Isaiah Thomas. So you could have went farther, like 40 years. So it got me thinking. The Pistons at some point, I don't think it's now. But at some point, the Pistons need to be able to stack up assets so they can go after one of those guys at some point. Maybe 3 years from now. Maybe it's 3 years from now. Maybe it's 4 years from now. But at some point, the Pistons need to be able to have assets to where if one of those guys come available, if a KD becomes available at the deadline, if a Kawhi Leonard becomes available in the offseason, if something like that, not those actual players because they're getting older, but you get what I'm saying. Like that kind of situation happens, the Pistons need to be able to be players in that market because history has shown you need one of those type of players. And eventually, some of these guys are going to ask out. Some of these guys are going to demand trades. It's going to happen. And I don't think the Pistons are in a position right now to even be in the market for those guys. So I think the Pistons need to be aggressive in those assets. And when the time is there, when the opportunity arises or comes around, they need to be aggressive and do it. Because if you're serious about winning an NBA championship, yes, there'll be risk involved in it. History has shown us for 40 years now, you need one of those guys. And if the Pistons don't have one of those, yes, it may be risk. There's risk that comes with it. Maybe it blows up in your face. But if you're trying to win an NBA championship, that's the type of risk you have to take. Toronto made the best risk that we can mention in recent memory, I think, would be Toronto with Kawhi. Major injury concerns around Kawhi, but you knew how great he was. They took that risk. They got an NBA championship out of it. So that's just what spawned in my head, got me thinking about it. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts about it. But you guys thought I was finished. We're still going with this topic. This is the one thing, though. I'm sure some of you guys may have already went to the comment section and tried to let me know. Listen to the whole segment first. While that has been the NBA history for the last 40 years, and I still think there's a very large chance that is how it's going to go for the rest of NBA history. Like, I feel like it's never going to change. Like, a large chance it never changes. However, there is a chance that it does change in this near future. Because Adam Silver in this new CBA, they are preaching parity. They want talent spread across the league. The NBA is filled with talent more than it's ever has. They're talking about expansion teams. And in the new CBA, they're penalizing teams bad for going into the second tax apron. We'll talk about it further in the offseason. We'll have a salary cap guide to completely explain it. But basically, in the most common sense terms I can explain, I'm saying the same thing that JJ Redick, Brian Windhorst said. I listened to JJ talk about it. But basically, the most common sense way to say it is, you can pay your superstar. You can pay your number one guy. You can pay a number two guy. The new CBA makes it really hard now to then pay a third guy big time money. It makes it really hard to pay three guys big time money. And honestly, you can pay your one guy, but then you even have to be more careful now with how the CBA is structured now in the next, I believe it happens next year or 2 years from now, with the salary cap, how much it penalizes you and how you can't, once you go into that apron, you can't do anything. All you have is vet minimums. You can't do trades like that. You can't make mid-level exceptions. You're screwed. And teams are you're already starting to see rumors starting to happen of guys trying to get rid of stars so they can avoid that tax apron. The reason why that's important is because they're trying to get rid of the super teams. They're trying to spread talent across the league. They're trying to get rid of big threes. Really, it might even hurt some big twos because you got to make the right decision of, is this guy actually a good enough two? Because if he isn't, we pay him, we're going to be penalized a lot more now than we were 3 years ago. The reason why that's important for the Pistons is because maybe because of those rules, you start to see more just great teams win instead of just the historic great players, because great teams can be built. There's talent across the league, and now you can't stack up teams with the great players. There's going to be more good teams across the league. There's going to be more parity. So maybe that changes things. Maybe that is I think it's going to be great for small markets to give them a better chance, and whether people want to believe it or not, the Pistons are considered a small market in the NBA. Maybe that saves them. Maybe that really gives more life to the chance of, even if you don't have a top 20 player of all time, even if you don't have a top 5 player in the NBA, if you have a great team and your team's just better than the other guy's team, you can win a championship like that. I think that does give, this new CBA does give credence to that possibility. But even still, I still believe that it's going to be the best players winning. It's going to be the top 5 best players in the NBA winning championships. Because in basketball, one player swings the balance way too often. You play both sides of the ball. And as long as the best player, best 2 or 3, 4, 5 players in the NBA have a good team, it's hard to beat them. It's hard to beat them once that happens. So either way, I think my point throughout this topic still stays true. But I am going to say, like I said, I think this new CBA may change that. It has a chance to. I don't think it will if I had to bet my money on it, but it could change it. And I think you just need to watch how the NBA operates over the next few years with this new CBA and monitor situations with these kind of top-heavy guys at the top of the league, acquire assets so the Pistons can be in that situation. Because if the championship is what the Pistons fans want, what this front office wants, what we want to do in the next 2, obviously this is really down the road I'm talking. It was just a fun topic I've been thinking about. But it's like 5, 6, 7, 8 years down the road. But it's something to maintain, it's something to keep in your head and something to think about and to monitor across the league. That's all I'm saying. But I went on for like 10 minutes there. I think it's a fun topic. I think it's really interesting, not just for the Pistons either. It's going to be really fun to see how teams react to this new CBA and how teams are built now. Because it's going to change how teams are built. It's going to change how much talent is on a singular team, how much talent is on multiple teams throughout the league. It's going to be really fun to see it. So let me know what you guys think about all this. I know I rambled a lot about it. I think it's a really cool topic. I think it really impacts the Pistons a ton. So let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter @KukaHeel how you guys feel about this. But that's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel @Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe. Peace out.